Welcome. This is Gutted. Loaves, fishes, and being more than the sum of your parts. I'm Dr. Stacy Markey, and today we finish our exploration of Season 2, Episode 3 of The Chosen. Its title, Matthew 4:24. Our last episode closed with Big James stepping away to help with crowd control. As little James walks back to the game table, he quickly realizes he's worse off than when he left. He looks at Philip. "I thought you said you were good at this." Philip laughs. "I thought I was." It's a small exchange, but it reveals something new. For the first time, we see little James visibly frustrated. Not gentle, not quietly grateful, just worn down. It's been a long day. The game has gone badly. He's reached the point where even small disappointments feel heavier than they typically would. It's the kind of irritation that surfaces when someone has been holding themselves together for a long time. When he hears the details of the fireside conversation, he admits he's glad he missed it. But his irritation doesn't stay contained. It opens into something deeper as he starts talking about the crowd. People arriving with urgency and expectation. People coming because they want Jesus to do something for them. He isn't upset that people are being healed, but it's not like it was with the Samaritans, and that's where the tension sits. With the Samaritans, faith came first. They believed based on what they heard before they ever saw a miracle. But here in Syria, it feels different. The motivation seems to be the healings themselves. And little James wonders, what will happen to the belief when the healings stop? For most people, frustration is rarely just about the one or two things they can identify. What's unfolding for little James didn't begin with the line outside the tent or the game table. It's been forming his entire life. Living in a body that doesn't always cooperate teaches lessons early, often before there are words to describe them. He's learned to gauge his impact on a room, to notice when his presence slows things down or draws attention he didn't ask for. He knows how easily help can turn into pity and how quickly his need can feel like an inconvenience to others. As someone who has spent his entire life trying not to be a burden, the entitlement he senses in the crowd exposes something raw and unprotected deep inside him. So when Thomas asks why he hasn't asked Jesus to heal him, little James admits what he's been carrying, that he's worried that bringing it up might change the relationship between him and Jesus, that asking for healing might somehow jeopardize his belonging in the group. Gratitude feels safer than desire. Gratitude doesn't ask for more. Desire does. A sound from the darkness pulls their attention toward the edge of camp. From the shadows, Mother Mary steps into the light of the fire. Mary rushes toward her, giving her a hug that says so much more than words ever could. Her shoulders drop. Her breathing softens. It's the kind of embrace that loosens tightness you didn't even know you were carrying. She's just arrived, yet Mother Mary's presence has already changed the emotional temperature of the camp. While the camp has been consumed with conversations about prophecy and purpose, she notices their bodies. She notices how long the day has been and how tired everyone looks. She doesn't ask what Jesus is doing. She asks, how long has he been doing it? Her instinct is care, and she's there to help. Seeing the food, she immediately begins to prepare dinner. Food isn't just fuel for the body. It's deeply tied to nurturing. An infant doesn't know the difference between hunger, fear, cold, or being overwhelmed. An infant knows distress. Cries communicate a need for help, and caregivers must determine what will calm it. Closeness, warmth, feeding, touch. Breast or bottle becomes the first place where nourishment and comfort are braided together. Over time, food becomes something deeper. We cook for grief and we cook for joy. We bring meals to the sick. We prepare feasts for celebrations. Food becomes one of the most common ways humans communicate care. As dinner ends, Simon, his body exhausted, but his mind still reeling from the day with Jesus, says he needs a mental break. He asks Andrew to do one of his meaningless what if games. As if on cue, Andrew objects, saying, they're not meaningless, they're interesting. But since Simon asked so nicely, there is one he has been thinking about. What would you do to have all the money you ever wanted? What would you be willing to give up? Big James responds first. Like something painful? Andrew nods, or something crazy, like stripping down naked and running through the marketplace screaming. Thomas laughs. No, he would be killed by a Roman soldier. An answer that lands closer to home for Thomas than the others realize. Big James, almost as if the words themselves feel dangerous, adds that it would be immodest, a sin. Remember, Simon, Andrew, James, and John all grew up together. And it's easy to imagine Big James as the one who named the boundaries, the one who said no when the others wanted to test the limits just a bit. Simon's like, fine, whatever. What if it wasn't a sin? Would you give up your left hand to have all the money you ever wanted? Most people assume the right hand is the one that matters most. Strength, skill, dominance. So giving up the left hand almost sounds merciful, but for fishermen, no hand is unnecessary. It isn't just flesh and bone. It's nets and ropes and balance. It's the trade they learned from their fathers and uncles. To lose it wouldn't just change how they work, it would determine whether or not they could work. John introduces humor. Well, not a full hand, maybe a couple of fingers? Andrew raises the stakes. What about love? Would you give up ever being married? John looks to Simon, who, having regained some of his energy, gets a little cheeky. It's absolutely worth it, but John, he'll never be lucky enough to find someone like Eden, so yeah, he should just take the money. Mother Mary joins in, quietly. She says she's never had much money and she's been happy. When Thomas adds that following Jesus likely means they'll never have much money, she doesn't argue. She knows he's had some, He catered the wedding of her friend Dinah's son, but she doesn't need to say it out loud. Instead, she asks a question. He's had money, right? Was he happier then or now? John's mouth moves faster than his brain as he says, I don't know, ask Matthew. Yeah, it's all fun and games until someone loses an eye. Andrew, warning in his voice, says, John? Genuinely confused, John asks, how is that a bad question? He's just following the conversation Andrew started. Matthew's had money, they haven't. Matthew answers anyway, saying he feels better now. He's just not sure it's the same thing as being happy. There's a moment of silence as the group reflects on what Matthew just shared. Then Andrew speaks again. He thinks about it sometimes. He pauses, then admits he feels guilty. That phrase, I think about it sometimes, lands just short of disclosure. Guilt freezes him mid-sentence, making him wonder if even wanting to talk about this has already crossed a line. As he wrestles inside his own head, a moment is created. A moment that allows someone to come toward him with an invitation. One that makes it so he doesn't have to step all the way out there alone. If someone else asks, the weight shifts. It isn't him pushing his fear into the open. It becomes him responding to an invitation. Rama senses it and asks simply, for what? She names what everyone feels, allowing Andrew's private thoughts and fears to become shared. His guilt is about desire, about wanting things he believes he shouldn't even think about, let alone want. His question was never really about riches. It was about trade-offs, about what gets lost when you choose one life over another. Then he takes an even deeper step into vulnerability, saying he feels like he's living inside someone else's life, that when he looks at himself from the outside, he doesn't recognize the person he sees. It's like he's trying to live up to the amazing heroes that came before them. He feels an internal pressure to do something great while knowing that he's completely ordinary. It's commonly referred to as imposter syndrome. It's when someone feels like they're being a fraud, even when there is clear evidence that they belong. Rama recognizes the feeling, saying that for her, it feels like there's no room left for mistakes, as if one wrong step could unravel everything, despite the fact that there's nothing to suggest she's failed at anything at all. They're describing the same weight, but from different angles. Mother Mary grounds them by returning to her story as the woman chosen to carry, birth, and raise the Messiah. Her story isn't triumphant, it's tender, unguarded. She remembers him first not as Messiah, but as an infant who was cold and needed help breathing on the night he was born. A baby who needed to be cleaned, held, and fed by a teenage girl who had no idea how any of this was supposed to work. She remembers the awe and the fear, and she admits that for a moment, even she wondered, is this really the Son of God? The air around the fire changes. Her admission loosens the grip everyone has been holding on certainty. If she wondered, then wondering isn't a failure. It isn't a lack of faith. It's what happens when reality doesn't perfectly match up to expectations. Her words give everyone permission to hold awe and uncertainty in the same breath. Returning from a deep place of nostalgia, Mother Mary looks up and grounds herself in time and space by taking in everything around her. She realizes a fair amount of time has passed, and looking at Simon asks, "Before he left the line, did it seem like Jesus would be much longer?" Simon answers honestly, "Yes, the line was dying down, but they all know he won't send anyone away." Knowing it may still be a while, Mother Mary stands saying she'll go check on him. As she leaves, the group sits with the story she just told. Thomas makes the connection that, like him, Jesus also lost his father. Mary speaks about how losing her father at such a young age shaped her relationship to her identity as a Jew, and how being a young woman on her own made hardship and trauma a near daily reality. She looks up, saying, they're different now, and she really wants to be a good student. Not impressive, just faithful. She wants to be able to sit in these conversations about Torah without feeling like she's borrowing someone else's seat. That's what she hopes for as she studies with Matthew and Rama. But right now, everyone else seems so fluent, so at ease. And she's aware of how much she's forgotten, how far behind she feels, and how hard it's going to be to begin again without apologizing for the gap. The others, looking around the fire, make eye contact and begin to laugh. Not because she said anything funny, but because they remember themselves as preteens and adolescents in Torah class. Nearly everyone admits that they weren't great students. They didn't love prayer. They broke rules. They struggled with discipline. Some even broke food laws. What they're really saying is, we didn't come to this ready. Faith didn't arrive as competence. It arrived mid-life, mid-failure, mid-confusion. But over time, they've learned to love being Jewish, and they've learned to love the law, as exhausting as they both may be. Big James names it. It's never been easy to be a Jew, even before the Roman occupation. Mary, focused on the future, thinks they're used to it. It's made them stronger. Thomas shakes his head. Honestly, he doesn't understand why God even allowed the occupation. It's made it really hard to feel like the chosen people. Simon agrees, saying, yeah, he's been there. This conversation is about to turn sharp and cutting. Remember Simon on the boat the night before he met Jesus? How tortured he was? How he yelled at God asking why he allowed all this? How it made it so hard to feel like the chosen people. Remember why he was on the water that night? He was desperately trying to catch enough fish to keep his life from falling apart, to make enough money to pay some of his taxes. Taxes that Matthew collected. Simon, looking across the fire at Matthew, asks, what about him? Has it been hard for him all this time to be Jewish, to follow the law? Matthew registers the tension. He knows this conversation could explode at any moment. It's why he's been so quiet. What he doesn't know is how to de-escalate Simon. So he gives the only answer that feels honest, saying his life hasn't been easy. Mary, unsettled, shifts, her body bracing for what she knows is coming. Simon is laser focused on Matthew. With barely controlled contempt, he asks, what was more painful? Escaping Roman persecution by working for them, or escaping his guilt with all the money? Dripping moral sarcasm, he says, Now Matthew wants to catch up on Torah, to finally obey the law. Why now, when he had so many other opportunities? From across the fire, John says, "Simon." It's a warning not to go too far. But Simon, he isn't backing down. He wants an answer. He demands one. He compares Matthew to Mary, saying she had horrible trauma. She didn't choose what her life became. What's his excuse? Matthew admits he doesn't know what Simon wants from him. The answer comes from Andrew. An apology. He wants an apology. Matthew, confused, just says, "What?" Andrew admits Simon could find a better way to say it, but he's not wrong. From behind Thaddeus, Mother Mary and little James approach, smiling and talking. What they walk into is not what they expected. Andrew, the peacemaker, the one who was always smiling, is angry with Matthew, saying he chose to work for them. He made Andrew's life harder than it already was, and he hasn't apologized. What spills out of Simon next isn't just anger. It's grief mixed with betrayal. He isn't arguing theology. He's defending solidarity. Suffering together has been the glue of their shared identity. What Matthew did broke that shared pain. Simon's refusal to forgive is partially based in fear, a fear that forgiveness would mean admitting the wound mattered less than it did. He needs his cost to be acknowledged because that cost shaped him. John pushes back, not to excuse Matthew, but to challenge Simon's self-appointed authority. Thomas joins in, exposing his own resentment about always being behind. Big James reminds him that he's new. This isn't his battle. Now, Big James and John stand facing Simon and Andrew, and it's clear that this is about to turn uglier than it already is. And then Jesus arrives. Not triumphant. He's exhausted, bleeding, and barely upright. He doesn't correct anyone. He doesn't resolve anything. He arrives emptied. His presence reframes the entire scene without a single word being spoken. This is the cost no one around the fire has fully faced yet. Not debate, not identity, not law. The cost of showing up for people until there's nothing left inside your body to give. His mother tends him the way she always has. She washes his hands, helps him steady his breathing. She tells him to sleep. The Messiah submits to the care of his mother. The Son of God lets someone else finish the day for him. And that's where the scene lands. Not with answers, not with apologies, but with rest. What holds this group together isn't agreement or clarity. It's shared weariness, shared honesty, and the slow realization that faith isn't built by being right. It's built by staying even when things are unresolved. Join me next time as Nathaniel takes on his first architectural project for the group, and we watch the lives of two brothers as they grow, diverge, and eventually reunite. One will be healed, and the other will become the next to join Jesus and his followers. This is Gutted: Loaves, Fishes, and Being More Than the Sum of Your Parts.